All right, I'm on.
Hey man, I'm on as well. Here we are. Third Disney conversation. What to do about Disney? How you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I think we're working through some of this stuff, and of course, we're having to think through it ourselves, maybe for the first
Yeah,
time at this level, which is it's healthy. Um,
it's difficult because it's not that's just not something that's just up here. And you guys think about it, let that affect your lives. Like we're having to live this right now and process it kind of on the fly as we go. So it is difficult because we've got to, what we're saying, and I find this is like, I'm going to have to figure out, is this where I land? And will what I think, stay and affect my practice? And that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Like, is this going to stick, or how am I going to live this truly out and not just leave it up here? So good conversation stuff. So, today, right, we're going to be talking about the dilemma, because we've talked about, the Disney issue so far, but today we're talking about the dilemma of, okay, so people are wondering about whether they stay with Disney or not. And then they're wondering about, like, is it wrong to kind of financially support Disney stuff? But I think that's a much broader question, Andrew, than just Disney. I think it has to do with companies in general, right?
yeah,
That don't share our values. How much am I accountable for, the money that I spend that goes into those things? So, man, we got a big topic today.
yeah, we do.
Feeling ready?
So let's open in prayer, and we'll ask God to give us wisdom here. So,
Let's do it.
uh, the Lord's Prayer: Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. All right,
So,
man.
yeah, I thought it might be helpful to start with the resolution kind of at the end of the Disney boycott for the Baptists, because there was a recognition that there was going to be an ongoing struggle, not just with Disney, but that Christians were going to need to start really being thoughtful about our resources. And I thought that this was a really great line from the resolution. It says, "Be it further resolved that we encourage Southern Baptists to refrain from patronizing any company that promotes immoral ideologies and practices, realizing that the Disney company is not the only such provider."
Yeah.
And I think that's really helpful, because why are we targeting? Some people are seeing even the title of this episode and saying, "Why are you guys going off on Disney so much? So many other companies are already knee deep." It's because they have become so outspoken advocating for indoctrination of LGBTQIA ideas at the kindergarten level, and saying a state shouldn't suppress that. And so that's a little bit beyond what I know of other companies.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just ignorant of some other companies, but that's such a high profile family-based company that's why this rises to the level of, Disney's kind of the company standing in place. But even the Baptists back in 2006, 2007, were saying this isn't just Disney. And so, do not refrain from patronizing any company that promotes immoral ideologies and practices. And
So
yeah.
yeah, but the big problem with the Disney one, right? The reason why you bring up Disney is because Disney is so large.
Yeah.
So Disney owns all the comic book stuff. If you have a Marvel guide, if you like Star Wars, Disney owns all of that. Disney owns National Geographic. Disney owns ESPN. Disney owns Hulu, or majority of Hulu, I think. Disney owns now all the Fox movies too. So what used to be, if you remember the old like da, 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 and they'd have the lights and it said Fox, now it just says Entertainment Studios. They took Fox out because they own that. And so and then in terms of kids entertainment, what's on? Really, there's kind of three places in my mind that your kids are going to be entertained with some show from someplace. You're either going to get Disney, or you're going to have Nickelodeon, or you're going to have PBS Kids.
PBS. Uh-huh.
And all three of those are terrible choices in terms of, like, none of those are places that you can just say, sit unattended. Yeah. And I can trust 100% that my content that my kids are going to get is just going to be good. Like all three of those, I have to still sit and peer in and check, make sure that what's actually going on. And so it's not an easy thing, but Disney owns so much of what we're looking at that it's kind of the first easy target, but it's much bigger than a Disney thing for sure.
Yeah. And so when you realize that these companies, back early 2000s, we didn't see things rising to this level, but here we are in the 2020s, and it's a minority for a company not to be totally sold out to immoral agendas, really. And because of that, it's like, okay, so how do we even do this other than, jumping in with the Amish and trying to just disconnect from the world altogether? And so, it is difficult, and it requires a lot of thought, and it requires some courage. And then there's a lot of grace here, because you may decide that as you look into something that you're completely 100% against it, cutting it out of your family's life and your life, but a brother or sister may not be there with you. And this kind of stuff can cause division in the church too, so that you end up with families that are fighting each other because they aren't in agreement about what level of pulling away from culture's entertainment is acceptable. And we can't let this divide and destroy us, but we do need to have some principles and things that really help us work through how this looks in our day.
Yeah. Well, so I think this brings us to the big question that, we've always struggled with as a family, which is, okay, so what is there a line, I guess, that we need to be mindful of like when I need to stop supporting a business or a company? Because it's one of those things that every company's got its hands in something. And every company today, if you're going to do business in America, it seems like you're going to be supporting a ton of things that are causes, and supporting things, some more blatant than others, but others just cutting checks to and being behind companies that definitely are anti-Christian values. Right. And so for us, we've always had to ask that question. So should we stop going to these stores? But I think once you start to do that, you start to realize, like, okay, if I really wanted to do that, I feel like, Andrew, like the only places that we would be able to go would be, we would eat at Chick-fil-A. Actually, we have a really excellent Mexican restaurant up here, but it's closed on Sundays like Chick-fil-A. It's called Carolina's. Oh man. It's like Chick-fil-A in the sense of my paycheck would be gone each time you visit, but it's so good. And then, then you got like Hobby Lobby, right? But outside of that, it's kind of like, okay, so where can I go? And what do I do? And so that really puts you, like, if you only say I'm only going to support just those, then you're stuck. And really you can't do it. And so there's got to be a way. And I don't think that the Bible has left us in this place where we are rigid and we can only support only the things that line with us, or not support, but what's the word I'm thinking about? Like, visit the establishment, things like that.
Yeah. Patronize.
So there's gotta be some guiding principles for us. So I think there are some verses for us to think through that kind of give us the base, and then we still can answer, what do you do about some of the more explicit companies? So you want to start into that a little bit and help me with my issue?
Let me, before we jump in the verses, because we'll let the Bible have the last word, I think, if I can kind of define some categories that, again, our Roman brothers and sisters, if you'll use that language, the Catholic Church has a longer tradition on some of these things that's helpful, because it's right aligned with where we're at. But they make a distinction of formal cooperation and material cooperation. And that's the idea of, if I am to formally cooperate with evil, that is always wrong. And so that would be me publicly endorsing something the Bible says is wrong. This is a big question. We should do one on these too. Would you support a friend at a gay wedding, that they're getting married? I know that a lot of pastors, they think that's a great opportunity to bear witness. I would fall on the side that would be a formal cooperation with something the Bible condemns. So, and trying to even get everyone to agree on this is difficult, but this is a matter of conscience, which is where we're headed. But if it's evil and you are formally participating, cooperating, either engaging in the evil or supporting it outwardly, that's always sin. And I would say the Catholics are correct on that. And there's plenty of biblical evidence to support that. But material cooperation is that issue that we're working through right now. And that's the idea of I don't share the wrongdoer's intention of performing an immoral act. I'm not cooperating directly, but the reality is I'm exchanging services, and the other party that is promoting maybe something I view as immoral is using my funds that I purchased. So let's just say I bought a DVD of the original Parent Trap. All right. And I'm doing, old Disney movies, and I'm collecting old, VHS cassettes. Somehow, somewhere that might get back to Disney and turning a profit. Or maybe I'm only watching Disney Plus, the nostalgic stuff. They're still getting revenue from that. My desire to watch some of these things that is not necessarily evil, and I paid for that good, is now going to be used by Disney to lobby against Florida or wherever to promote causes I disagree with. That is in a gray area that is not necessarily evil, because I didn't purchase that. I purchased something that was, in my mind, clean and good. And yet at the same time, it is being revenue. And I know that revenue is being used in a way that I don't approve of, at least a piece of it. And so that's not necessarily evil, but it would be one of those things that I might get convicted of that in such a way that maybe it's evil for me. And that'll get back to that Christian conscience issue we were working through back when we were talking about the vaccination stuff. I hope we don't get banned. I said the word.
It's okay.
So formal, always wrong. Material cooperation, not necessarily wrong. But you have to say, well, what am I getting for my money? I have members of my own church that are not necessarily happy about paying taxes because they feel like that is material cooperation and evil because of the way our taxes are being used. Yeah. I think taxes is a coercion of the government. So I don't think it's the same thing. You refusing to pay taxes. I think Jesus gave us an example there. He knew what they were going to do with that money. They would put the Son of God on the cross. So he paid his taxes. I think that's a different category. But I know people that would make a stand even on paying their taxes, which, again, I think that's beyond Scripture. But
I would agree on that one. I've heard that one too. And I think Jesus kind of dealt with that with render to Caesar what is Caesar's, right? I mean, that's a completely different thing.
Yeah. That falls under the governmental component, which is different, but I do agree. And what's wonderful about America is that we can get into the political process. But so when we're talking about Disney or another company, it is material cooperation. And we have to then decide what's our line. I don't know that there's a solid biblical line, but what's our line? Yeah. And so some Bible verses, one of the key ones that we go back to, I think I'll start with Romans 14. That's the passage about eating meat sacrificed to idols. The Jews thought this was a terrible thing to eat meat that was sacrificed to idols because indirectly they were giving material cooperation to idolatry, and that would be terrible. And so they did not want to eat meat if they knew it was sacrificed to idols. Paul kind of takes a more liberal view on this, that food is all food. You're free in Christ to eat meat because it's not necessarily evil. So I guess I should probably read some of this. Except one whose faith is weak without quarreling over disputable matters. One person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another person whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not. And the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does. Okay, so unity in the church is a guiding principle here. We go on a little bit further and we'll kind of discuss this idea about eating meat and in what context. At the very end of the chapter, it says that whoever has doubts is condemned if they eat, because their eating is not from faith, and everything that is not from faith is sin. And so my participation in what I may sense to be supporting something that's evil indirectly, that could rise to a level where I'm torn up about it, and it would become sin for me if I participated in it. And if that's you, then you need to not do that. You don't want to sin against your own conscience is basically what's going on here. I know you've got a couple. I'll kick it back.
Yeah. I mean, so that's been one of the big ones for me, is to kind of think through that. I will say this, that once you start going down this road, you begin to realize that there's a lot more of your money is being spent in places that you don't realize. Like, I remember listening to a Dave Ramsey conversation about people asking about just their 401ks. And he says, do you understand? Like, it's going out to everything. And so to invest in companies, like it's a very difficult way to try to do this. And so we need to think through those things. And some of it you can't untangle some of it. It's just how it is. But I think one that's been helpful for me is the same concept that Paul's talking about, the meat sacrificed to idols. He picks up that in 1 Corinthians 10. And he says in verse 25, eat everything that is sold in the meat market without raising questions for the sake of conscience, since the earth is the Lord's and all that's in it. If any of the unbelievers invites you over and you want to go, eat everything that's set before you without raising questions for the sake of conscience. But if someone says to you, this food is from a sacrifice, do not eat it out of consideration for the one who told you and for the sake of conscience. I do not mean for your own conscience, but for the other person's. For why is my freedom judged by another person's conscience? If I partake in thanksgiving, why am I criticized because of something which I give thanks? And then he gets into whether you eat or drink, whatever you do everything for the glory of God. And so, I mean, that's an interesting concept, right? Because he's saying you can go to the market and you don't, in some aspect, you should be able to go to the store to be able to consume a good and not have to wonder where this came from or how it all came. And so that's the case. I mean, that's talking about meat there, but the principle that I think is helpful to think about, right, is I don't need to know where this all came from and what's going on in the process. I'm looking at food in front of me and I'm going to eat the food and I'm not going to ask. Now, there might be somebody, he says, who will say, hey, listen, like this, you understand where this came from, and really get torn up about that. In that case, for the sake of that, you put that aside, right? You're not going to do that to destroy somebody else's faith or to, so I think there's something to be said about too, like, don't flaunt the freedom you have in Christ to hurt other people. I think there are some people, I think it's pretty clear, right, in both the Romans passage and this one, right, that wherever we land on some of these issues, the next step is for not to me to start sending selfies and posts to tell everyone what a bunch of bigots they are, that they're not with it like I am, not that they would use that, but to really just flaunt how you've made these great decisions for yourself and all of that, and to try to to just make a statement, right? Like some of these are very touchy things, and so how you do it should be somewhat private, but I do think it's helpful, right? Because there is an aspect of like, can I just go to Walmart and buy my groceries and just try to stay out of thinking I don't need to see everything that Walmart supports. Can I go to McDonald's and eat and not wonder? And so in that respect, I think that goes easy, food to food. But then the question is, should this and can this be used in terms of entertainment and other things? So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's one of the guiding principles. So, again, individual conscience, but also concern for a brother or sister's conscience. And so that's really important. If I've got a friend who is absolutely anti-Disney and thinks it's time to make a stand and they come over, I'm probably not going to put on something from Disney Plus, right? Because I would be tempting them to violate a position that they've spiritually adopted, so for their sake, I'm not going to do that. And if I'm in a position, say the church is going to have a movie night and we're trying to vote on a movie and we're going around and I realized a movie we all want to watch was made by Disney. Well, for the sake of a brother, I might say, well, we're not going to do that movie. We're going to find something else, because I don't want to cause them to sin against their own conscience. So it's not for my own conscience, but for theirs. But they may have arrived at their position in a pretty well thought spiritual way. I think today we're always kind of assuming, those people of weak faith, not recognizing we've compromised at so many places that I'm not sure Paul would be on our side in this, but
that's a big one.
And then, going to the public, 2 chapters earlier, 1 Corinthians 8:10, if someone sees you, the one who has knowledge, dining in an idol's temple, won't his weak conscience be encouraged to eat food offered to idols? And so at the very least, if there's a gray area, an issue that the church is divided on, like you said, we don't want to publicize our participation in it in such a way that could let other people believe that we're fully endorsing a company that's promoting immoral acts or immoral behavior. And that would be, Disney. So right now, the Southern Baptist Convention is in Anaheim, and there were discounted tickets to Disneyland, and a lot of Baptists will be going to Disneyland. some people are struggling with this. And of course, if you're going to Disneyland, you're going to get pictures and they're going to end up on social media. And so maybe this is one of those situations where if you and your family decide to go to Disneyland, you maybe don't publicize as much, because right now it could offend a brother or a sister. There's not an official stance by the Southern Baptists against Disney right now. There might be after this coming convention. But it's a gray area, and you're free. All things are faith, right? If not all things are beneficial, but all things are permissible. I think that's from the same chapter you were in. So we have to work through these things, but we should have a burden that our resources are being used in a way that is antagonistic towards the kingdom. That should bother Christians. Whether it rises to the level of boycotting, that's an individual issue. I think the problem I have is so many people are saying, well, it's impossible, so I'm going to abdicate any responsibility to try to untangle that mess. And I do think that's a weak position. That's someone who's too lazy in the faith to struggle through some of these things.
You're right on that.
If you struggle through it and you find, well, I really can't do it everywhere, I'm going to intellectually and intentionally make these decisions, then God bless you. Hopefully you'll have some peace in the spirit. And of course, we're just kind of we're both working through this at the moment, trying to figure out, okay, where do we make the moves? And I didn't necessarily run out and cancel every streaming service that I own after our first video. We're just trying to figure out, at the very least, as a father, how do I protect my own kids right now? And then, kind of expanding it out. How do I, be salt and light in a world that's really lost? And so my small amount of dollars, maybe I do want to be more strategic. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, so here's some of the issues that I've run into, right? I think, there are some places that it's very easy. It's like, okay, I have the choice. If you're going to be explicit with what you support, I have the choice to kind of pretty much go somewhere else. And I don't need it, right? So if you're a burger place and that's explicit, like, I don't have to frequent you. I could go to a different burger place. Now, maybe it won't be as good of a burger, but that's fine. A burger's a burger. But like some of these other companies, it is very tricky. It's like, there's not a really good choice. So as we've gone through this, I mean, I've begun to think about, okay, so if I get rid of Disney, and I say, okay, we're going to go do something different. Let's do Netflix. The problem is, I mean, Netflix has a whole nother set of issues, and I'm still not, I mean, so there's that, right? And then I think it through my head like this. Okay. So Disney, let's say we don't do Disney, but we're not going to support Disney Plus, but I'll let my kids use the free Disney app. But here's the problem: is the free Disney app uploads all the new Disney content that they have explicitly said that's what they're trying to do, right? And so am I really any better? I'm not financially supporting them. Maybe I am technically by watching their stupid ads. But then am I supporting them that way, right? Yeah. And then, then what if I said I'm going to be done, but all I'm going to do is just when the Mandalorian DVD set's available, I'm going to buy the Mandalorian set. And so therefore I was given, $20 to Disney when I could have just, $8 a month, watch the streaming, the Mandalorian, so there's that weighs on me, right? About where can I send them? If I send them to Netflix, I can't really do that. If I send them to something that's got really not that superior content. So I wrestle with like the where do I go? And so this has led me to this question, right? Okay. So what about this? Okay. And the issue, of course, is the theme park stuff too, because, there's a lot of other places, they're not as squeaky clean. Right. So like, I love Legos. But Lego has gotten themselves into some stuff too, and what they support. And can I enjoy Legos without having to think and buy Legos without having to wonder about that? Can I enjoy Legos and go to the Lego park without worrying about those things? Right. There is some aspect like, can I just enjoy and spend times and not worry? And Disney, of course, has been more explicit about what they wanted to do. Everybody else kind of, it's just they're what they support. But here's the big question. Let me ask you this. You and I have talked about this. You're the one who years back, we started looking into like VidAngel together.
Right.
And so if you guys have not been, don't know what VidAngel is, you need to look it up. I think VidAngel is good. You were saying there's another one. that you've looked at, that you've messed with before?
Clear Play. I haven't gotten very deep into that, but that also looks like a pretty good service that's out there. And there's probably others.
You and I have been using VidAngel for a long time. We used it before, and then they ran into some issues, and now they're back up and running again. And but like, okay, so here's how VidAngel works, right? VidAngel right now, you can buy a subscription. They're running a great promo right now, $1 for the whole month to just try it out.
They're not sponsors of this program, by the way, but if they'd like to be, let us.
If you or any of you of our viewers know somebody on VidAngel, we could have our own time on video. We could be one of the hosts for something that would be cool. But okay, so right now, if you spend, it's $1 for the month, but then after that's like 99, it's like $10 for the month. Here's what happens. If you have Netflix, if you have Amazon Prime, and let's face it, if you like Amazon, if you like Walmart, all those support some wonderful things and some terrible things. Right. I think you got to just put blinders on at some aspect of that, because where are you going to go? But okay, is it wrong to say I'm going to support Netflix and I'm going to support Amazon? And, with that, you can watch, if you have Amazon, you can like buy the Paramount channel and Stars and all those. Can I support those? But for $10 extra, I'm going to watch VidAngel. And what VidAngel does is you can have it take out all the sex, all the nudity, all the language, the violence. You choose the things that you want to do to protect. So I can watch a movie now in a very, very clean way. And so I'm protecting my family and me, and I'm enjoying the content. But at the same, on the back end, Netflix is still getting money. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. And I think, and that's where we kind of have to build this up. I would say as a parent and as a father in particular, God has given you the unique responsibility to raise your children up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. And so trying to rate the priorities there, I would say guarding what your children are seeing is more important than making a stand against contributing to something that material cooperation, unless, of course, God has made it so prominent on your spirit that you can't partake, then I would say you can't do the streaming service either. It solves one problem, not the other. So I'd say the best thing, though, is to protect what your kids are watching one way or another. And we did VidAngel over the summer because right now we're in baseball, we're not watching any television. What I liked about VidAngel is they let me cancel at any time and pick it up again. I don't know if they're still doing that, but that was awesome. So, when summer hits, I'm planning on getting it again and just trying to see what stuff's available, because it is kind of nice. There's a lot of movies that I really liked in the 90s that are awesome, but there was a low bar on certain language and, just heterosexual stuff that was a little bit loose in a lot of the movies that I grew up with, and just being able to cut that out is really awesome. So, that's something I also support things like Answers in Genesis is building some content. Their children's stuff is not as polished maybe, but by supporting it, maybe they'll create some things. And there's different things that are out there. So you have to decide, okay, what are we going to do? And can we find some good things for our kids? And then just, if you remember 20 years ago, there were like 2 or 3 big movies a year that came out, and somehow we all survived, so it is kind of like maybe it would be okay to just reduce the amount of entertainment via streaming altogether. Yeah. But I think so that would be a good thing. The other thing I like about VidAngel is they have VidAngel Studios. And the cool thing there is that, all right, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to limit my material support of these companies that I disagree with as best I can. But I am also going to support these other services because they're actually using their profits to create content that's really quality. Yeah. I think they put out The Chosen. They've done some things that's really good. And so maybe we can create an alternative structure while still letting our kids have an opportunity to, watch some of the things that all their friends are watching. And we still have to be careful, but I think that might be a good solution, and so.
I mean, so here's, I think you bring up a good point, which is the order of priorities, right? Because I think Jesus makes a point about that too, when he's being hammered on his disciples walking through the grain fields, eating on Sabbath. And then he brings up the story of David going to the tabernacle and eating the bread. And the point essentially is that human need trumps, right, the kind of the Sabbath rules that you had, right? That kind of a thing. And he's made those in the past too. Like, yeah, if your neighbor's animal falls in on Sabbath, are you going to leave him there? It's like there's certain things that trump that, and human need is usually one of those. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that that's probably a good way to think about this too, right? Is like my protecting of my family, my guarding what my family watches is priority number one. And the other is a secondary one, right? And so, I thought about that. I think that's a great point to make. But the other thing that I think is kind of, you have to think through too. Like, so I've thought about this option of like, okay, so what if I don't want to support Disney, but I'm gonna go to the library from now on. And I love going to the public library because you can actually get a ton of movies that are in the library, and you can come watch those with your kids. But that doesn't solve the fact that all the crud that's been snuck into those movies that you're limited on, right? So where I'm leaning currently is some sort of form where priority one is guarding what my kids consume and watch, and priority two is doing my best to try to make sure that I'm not overtly supporting certain things that are there to to come against my family's values, the values of the scriptures. But I am thinking in terms of, okay, I am going to focus on, if I'm going to do something, I'm not going to feel bad about shelling out money to something. And let's say a company gets it, but if I'm on the other end with a company like a VidAngel getting money, but I'm blocking out everything and enjoying those things with my kids, I think that's totally fine. And that's kind of where I'm landing on this. I think on the other side, though, if you're not going to give money to Disney, if you're not going to give money to any of those, and you still want to sit down and watch PBS, or you still want to watch YouTube, man, you're going to still have to sit there. Yeah. You might be fulfilling, though, I'm not giving these people money, but you still have got to fulfill your duty of what am I consuming and what are my kids consuming? And so that job never ends, man. I just feel like we're in this cloud, and it's a back and forth. You got to try to do both as best as you can.
Right. And I would say also, Christians need to take up the creative capacity that God has given us and quit surrendering that to these corporations that have gone astray, and maybe there's a good opportunity for good believers to say, okay, I don't want to support that restaurant. I'm going to start my own restaurant. I don't want to support this company. I'm going to start my own company. We live in a country that really has great opportunity. And maybe we need to actually start thinking about, should I even remain in the employment of some of these companies, and start looking for larger macro solutions rather than just, figure out where's my next compromise. But in the current climate, again, what Paul really is pushing in the Corinthian passages and the Romans 14 passages, don't violate your conscience. Don't do anything that would cause another person to violate their conscience, and then strive for unity. Okay. Because this can get really divisive within the church. And we don't want, okay, well, Ben didn't cancel his Disney Plus, but I did, which I'm not sure what you've done or what I've done yet. So I'm holier than him, or he's holier than me. That kind of stuff. That's
true, though.
Well, you're much holier than I. That kind of stuff is not going to help. And so, I would give a caution here that we don't start seeing Christians who don't have the same level of concern about some of this stuff as our enemies. Rather, make a case, try to educate each other, pray for one another. And then, also maybe it's worth praying some judgment against some of the companies that we're talking about, that God would destroy and create new, because I think Disney's flat out too big. I think there'd be great, wonderful things in the kingdom if that thing broke into a lot of pieces. But I'm speaking off the cuff here, but yeah. God brings judgments against things like this. And I would warn Disney, the direction you're headed in some of these other mega corporations is a direction that God says his wrath is revealed against, and he will judge at some point. And so Christians, it's okay to pray that God would bring down some of these monsters before they have a chance to deceive our next generation.
And I think there's nothing wrong with also saying, like, I'm going to do this for a while to see if there gains any traction. Of like, are others like me doing the same thing, to see if they'll turn a corner and to see if they'll, repent and recant and try to do something different, because money talks, though, for a lot of these companies still. And so and maybe it won't though. And maybe it does. Cause you do wonder, like, does my $10 or 8 or whatever I spend, does that really affect them? Well, if a lot of people are doing it, it might. But for some of these, I think they're so dogmatic that they're going to be so dedicated to the cause that it doesn't matter if they're destroying themselves. And that's what some people have already criticized about the Netflix model, right? It was at Netflix that just lost 50 billion, and people are turning it off. And but it's not for any kind of like big political or spiritual or any reason. I think people are just tired of some of the content.
Well, and again, everyone's streaming something now. So Netflix used to have access to all of the content, and now they're losing it as NBC has its own. And so every group's got their own streaming platform, which is kind of pulling content away from Netflix. And what Netflix produces, a lot of it's trash. So, if I'm going to choose between X or Z, maybe I can't afford both Netflix and Paramount. I think you're seeing that. And then I think Disney lost 600,000 subscribers or something. I should have better data while I'm being recorded, but
those numbers are out now.
There was some numbers out that they lost a lot. So
I think I saw something like that the other day.
They're taking a major hit. And the question is, did they calculate how much they could take? So yeah, it does talk. It's not ineffective. But at the same time, that God is, I really feel like there's some wins happening for Christians out there, and we should get excited about this. But if we all just take our responsibility very carefully, really dedicate ourselves to doing what God's called us to do in our own context, we'll make big changes. And so it's exciting. Again, this shouldn't be an issue where we just feel like we're just buzzkill Christians everywhere. No. By the way, if I play a board game with my kids, that trumps a movie every night of the week. The only reason I like movie night is I'm tired. And it's so much. A
lot of nights though.
It's so much. Yeah. So, the key is that quality over, if you want the best quality, get some coffee going and pull out Mousetrap, have some fun, go outside, play some baseball, do some things with the kids.
This is content for another video, by the way. I think the Mormons have got it right on the family night, right? Family night, where you've got to have something like that, where not that we want to copy it, but I think they're onto something about why, for family unity of like, do we make time where we're all going to do something together and enjoy each other? As opposed to just sitting on our phones. I mean, you think about that now, like how many times, and this is totally off, but like we even eat dinner now without even looking at each other and talking to each other. How many times you go to a dinner, go to the meal place where you're at or get a coffee? How many people are sitting with each other and not actually talking? They're looking at their phones the whole time. So it's disengaging is important too, for sure.
So there's a lot of opportunity here, a lot of things to get excited about. And again, Christ is calling us deeper. And so this is maybe a video that you didn't want to hear, but now that you've heard it, you're obliged to listen to what the Spirit's calling you to. And, sometimes ignorance is bliss, but isn't it better not to be ignorant and to be engaged in kingdom work? Yeah. And so that's what I would want to leave people with is, look at this as a great opportunity, because God might do better things through your family than just your regular Disney Plus movie night.
Yeah. Well said, my friend. Well said. I hope that you're probably like me right now, and you're still like, I wish it was as clear as somebody was saying, do this, don't do this, but it's not that simple. And I think it's easier for your different stages of your life to be able to say, oh, it's so clear. Like if you don't have little ones and you're trying to think out, what do I do in entertainment option? I think it becomes easy for you. We're just not going to do it. But like when you've got kids, and you're trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I entertain them besides a board game? Besides, if you're going to watch something with them, like it is a very, it's a very tough question. It becomes very difficult in that context. So I know it's easier on certain stages of life for people to say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And I think it's easier on someone's to say, that I could do this or I could do that. So I think that's just something to be mindful of as well, is that every one of us has to kind of work through this. What are those priorities? Where am I at? And is my stage, does it make it a little bit trickier to navigate some of this stuff? So man, we have not left with a ton of, go therefore and do these things, but I hope it has been, at least a thought process to say it's a little bit trickier than what. But I would say at the end of the day, I think it's still okay. It's okay to buy your groceries from Walmart and Target, and it's okay to have an Amazon Prime account. And,
until the Spirit tells you it's not. And so, pray.
And it might happen.
Pray through these issues.
It might be, but that may not be what he's telling everybody to do, And
that's what people have to be willing to accept, that some of this stuff, God's going to grab different people at different times. And sometimes you're coming from a position where this is really a hard thing for you. And so God says you can't have any of it. And that's okay. That's completely good. God is calling us all into holiness, and he's reaching us at different stages at different times in different ways. So hang in there, love each other. And I think we've given some good things.
I think so, man. I think so.
You want to at least pray a blessing. If we didn't give them anything else, you can bless the audience.
Let's do that. You get the beginning and the end, or at least the most valuable part of these. All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. And may the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord look with favor on you and give you peace. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you sometime next week with another conversation from us about something. But comment, let us know what you want to talk about too.
Yeah, and if you've got other streaming things or options and filterings, put it in the comments, because that might be a good resource we could build. All right.
That's right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.